Now let's put our hands together to welcome our guest from Los Angeles. Joining us today, we have the protagonist of Tenet, John David Washington. And next, please welcome our lead actress, Elizabeth Debicki. Up next, please welcome our film producer who has worked with Mr. Nolan on all his projects, Ms. Emma Thomas. Last but not the least, please give the biggest round of applause to our writer, director, and producer of Tenet, Mr. Christopher Nolan. Why the concept of time is so important to you and your films?
Well, I've always been interested in concepts of time and different ways of looking at time. I think because it's something that's so defining in our existence, but it's so difficult to talk about or understand. And I think cinema has a great relationship with time, and the way in which an audience watches a film and receives the portrayal of time through the movie camera gives it a very, very unique power in terms of addressing ideas of time compared with any other medium. And so I think it's very fertile ground to try and explore ideas of time in movies.
What's your reaction when you first find out that you were going to be the lead of this film? Did you get any tips from your father on how to shoot these intense action scenes in this film?
Honestly, I found my mother and I hugged her first, and we yelled in unison, in harmony of celebration and great joy. It was a defining moment in my life, really, and a memorable one I'll never forget. And yeah, my father was very helpful and giving me advice in what to, just as he usually does, just to work hard and put the work first, and don't be too intimidated by a hero, a legend that will be directing me.
How would you interpret the relationship? Was it love or something else?
I don't think it was love in the traditional romantic sense, but I think that they are very interested in each other. I think that protagonist comes into Kat's life, and at first she really sort of rejects the idea of him, and I think feels sort of threatened by him and what he is potentially proposing to her because it's so out of her comfort zone. But I think that they both recognize something in each other, which is a sort of answer to a problem, I suppose. And I think that they both find each other very intriguing. And I think that they're both very skilled negotiators in their own way. And I think they both have this sort of deep intelligence and that they can read each other and people. And I think for me, playing Kat, protagonist really represents an escape in a way, and an ally and a friend. And I think that they do end up having a very profound effect on each other and teaching each other something. And I suppose in a way that is a sort of love.
What has your experience been like working with him?
Well, I'm very lucky getting to work with Chris because he makes me as a producer look good in the work that he does as a director and also as my fellow producer. He absolutely lives inside a movie when he's making one. He sort of lives, eats, sleeps, breathes that film. Which, he also manages to have fun with it, which is great. I think that he's never as happy as when he's standing on a film set, creating a world. It's always fun working with him, and I'm very grateful that I get to do so.
Why did you design such an important character but didn't give him a name?
Well, I think I wanted to tap into the tradition of entertainment that has an iconic character at the heart of it, who has mystery to his background, who doesn't have a name. I would look at the westerns of Sergio Leone with Clint Eastwood, for example, where he literally plays the man with no name. There is this great tradition of these characters in fiction, particularly in spy fiction. And I really like the idea of having this iconic presence, that your relationship with that protagonist is very much a present tense one. You're not learning or thinking about who they've been in the past. You're watching what the protagonist is doing, and you're gauging him and your relationship with him based on his actions rather than anything he might say about who he is or where he comes from. And not naming him, I think, helps draw the audience into that as a purposeful part of the narrative.
We're deeply touched by your performance at the end of the film, where you bid goodbye to Robert Pattinson's Neo. And this is your first time working with Robert. What was it like working with him?
It was an organic experience. It was a very honest experience. We just got along well. So there's something very natural about the chemistry in which we used, for the scenes. We were able to discover things together. There was no ego involved. We were there for the same reason. We had different methods of how we looked at the character in the script, but when we got together, it just formed naturally, and I just had a lot of fun with him. He's a spectacular actor and a wonderful human being, and I feel the same way about the entire cast. It was just we all just got along well and working together. I mean, everybody's so talented, so. It made me stay on my A game, get on my A game and stay on my A game.
In the end of the film, your character made a quite risky decision. What do you think of her choice?
Well, I support her choice. It always made sense to me. I understood exactly why she did what she did. And it's an interesting choice because it also indicates how much she trusts protagonist's ability to do what he's doing. And I think that it speaks to their relationship and their kind of intuitive, I suppose, trust really in each other. But what I love about Kat and what I loved about playing her was she always was very human to me, and I understood why she really didn't have a choice but to do what she did. And she knew that he was going to have her back. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
Next up, Emma, we know that the production decided to buy a real plane and crashed it into a building for real this time, and we're very impressed by that sequence. Is it difficult or challenging to control the film budget?
I think that whatever the budget of your film, it's always challenging because on any given film, you're always trying to put everything that you can on the screen and make the most of whatever resources that you have. And I think what was really amazing about that sequence in particular is that, the obvious thing to do would have been to, and maybe just the lazy thing to do would have been to do it all with CGI. But we have a really incredible production team, Tom Hayslip, our executive producer, and they really looked at sort of how to make that sequence work the way Chris wanted to, make it work, i.e. to make it as real feeling as possible. And it actually turned out to be cheaper to use a real plane than to build a miniature and to build a set and do a bunch of computer work. So it's all good.
In terms of production, which sequence took the most effort from you? What were the biggest challenges involved? And how did you overcome them?
Well, I think that the film is full of large-scale action, and that was something we wanted to really embrace with the making of the film. Do these things for real. You referred to the plane crash that we did with a real 747. And so overall, there was an increasing series of challenges. For me, it all was leading towards the final action at the end of the film, which we did shoot last, where we had to go out into the desert and construct what I'm told is the biggest set that's ever been built for a film, actually. And we had a very large number of people there, and a very, very complicated set of actions that needed to be performed with hundreds of extras, helicopters, and all kinds of physical elements integrated into what for me was the most complicated part of the storytelling as well, and one of the most complicated parts of the film to edit. So when I look at the whole sequence from script work through to planning with all the department heads and the training for the actors, and then the post-production work with my editor, Jennifer Lane, I think the Stosk 12 sequence of action at the end of the film is by far the most complex part of the film.
What was it like watching the film for the first time and seeing yourself in all those exciting action sequences?
I mean, if I got to be honest with everybody, it's quite difficult for me to watch myself in films. But this was a unique experience because it was a Christopher Nolan experience. So I found myself just lost in entertainment and in the spectacle of what was happening. And it was interesting because I remember being there, but watching the film, it was like I didn't experience any of it. It was like a new experience. So a great amount of joy. I was proud of it. And I really can't wait to watch it again, to be honest, to really try to wrap my head around what we did.
Has it been tricky keeping the secrets, and have you come close to spoiling it to anyone?
No.
No.
No. I feel like secrecy is a muscle, and I think we were well trained from the beginning. And I think that, but for me, it was never difficult, really, because I think that there are few things really in life that can really, really surprise you. I mean, in terms of how we see cinema now, sometimes the trailer gives the film away so quickly, or we hear things about it, or we understand the plot before we see it. And I think that the joy of so much of this film is how it reveals itself to the audience. And I think that watching it reveal itself in the way that Chris intends it to be seen is kind of the gift of the movie. And I understood exactly why we would have to keep it secret and why we should keep it secret. And I think I just did from the beginning. When I got the part, even I remember thinking, I won't tell anybody yet. And I think that's where the secrecy muscle started training. From the beginning, I was very like lock and key. So I'm really good at it now. I can keep anything under wraps.
We have Emma, a question for Emma. We understand much of the Tenet was filmed practically. So how did you go about filming the scenes in the inverted world without heavily relying on CGI?
Well, with a lot of planning and ingenuity. And I think that in many ways, shooting on film helped us because that's a technology that one can use to the cameras can shoot forwards or backwards. I think a great deal of rehearsal. I mean, I think there's really, when you look at this cast, they're an incredible group of actors, but it goes beyond the performances. It's also about sort of what they were willing to do and sort of physically speaking. I mean, John David, it's just incredible what he did in terms of doing action, literally doing action backwards. Everybody had to speak backwards. I mean, it took an enormous amount of planning and willingness to really do something different.
If time inversion really exists, which moment in time do you want to go back to? I mean, personally.
I think I'm with Rob's character of Neil in the film, where he talks about what's happened. So for me, having explored these ideas in the film, I don't really have any desire to go back to any particular moment in time and try and change anything that feels like the wrong path. So I'm more with the Neil character in that.
I would go back to when I was 7 years old. I had a birthday at McDonald's, and I would have told Ronald McDonald how much I appreciated him a little bit more. I didn't take advantage of that moment at the time.
On a bigger picture, I'm definitely with Chris in terms of not shifting anything fundamental in the history of our species. But I think if I could personally go back, I think I would just go back to, it's interesting because I thought, would I go back and tell myself anything I didn't know now about my life? I don't think I would tell myself anything that was going to come or not come and like guide myself through that. But I might tell myself to be a little bit nicer to myself from the beginning. I think that's what I would do. I would tell myself to just relax a little bit and that it's going to be okay. That's what I would do. probably from the age of 12.
Well, Chris and I have 4 children, and today is our baby's 13th birthday. And we just dropped off our eldest, who's 18, at college 2 weeks ago. So I'm quite aware right now of time passing very fast. And I think that if I could go back in time, I would go back to when they were babies. Because when they were babies, it felt like time was going very, very slowly. And I would go back just because I thought those days would never end, but here we are. They're off and they don't need us anymore. And I would really like to revisit having a little gang of babies.
How would you invite Chinese audiences to see Tenet in one sentence? Again, Chris, would you like to start?
Sure, but 2 sentences. Because
All
first,
right.
I just want to say thank you to everyone there in the audience tonight for staying up so late to see the film. It means an enormous amount to all of us that Chinese audiences would come out and see the film in this way. And as for people who haven't yet seen the film, I would invite Chinese audiences to come to the film for an experience, for an escape, and really for the thrill ride of the movie.
Well, I would like to echo what Chris said and just thank you for the support and watching the film. And I would say to come with an open mind and a hankering for adventure, just an appetite for, innovation.
Emma, how would you invite Chinese audience?
Well, firstly, as John David and Chris have said, thank you so much for coming out tonight and for staying up so late to watch the film and wait till the end. So, and I would say, I'm just really honored and excited that the film is coming out in China. I very much admire how much Chinese audiences love movies, and I hope that they enjoy the thrill ride and the spectacle, and come ready to have fun.
Well, I'll be the 4th person to say thank you to the audiences, but really it means an enormous amount. And it's so exciting that people are back in the cinema to see it. And I think on that note, and also what JD said about openness in a way, I think that the cinema can be such a transformative experience. And I think that this movie, it gives you access to an incredible adventure. And I think that the cinema and what this does on the big screen, it really gets into your body and your brain and your soul. And I think that that's what I hope people experience when they see the film.
So thank you all for a wonderful evening with the Chinese audiences. We appreciate your time. Now let's say goodbye and good night to our audiences. 我们也一起和主创们说再见嘛，来，大家一起挥挥手。